Hello, everyone. Welcome to this edition of Future of Work series by NASSCOM Insights. Planned as a 12-part series, each session will focus on different aspects of workplace to workforce in post-COVID-19 scenario. I'm Kriti Makhija, Chief Financial and Compliance Officer, Genesis BCW, a member of Advisory Board NASSCOM community, and your host for today's discussion on the future of work and evolving hybrid operating models. I'm sure you will agree that amongst many things, the pandemic has also been a crash course in the advantages and disadvantages of remote working. Most importantly, it has helped us identify that we, as employers and employees alike, desire a hybrid model to define our future of work. All conversations point towards a hybrid operating model that's flexible, scalable, and crisis-proof as the future. As I open the panel discussion on the future of work and evolving hybrid operating model, it excites me to have on panel today leaders with rich experience across all functions, domains, and industries. A CFO, a people enabler, a sales head, and a technology expert. All of them bring unique insights and diverse perspective on the topic of discussion. With that, here's introducing our guest. First on, we have Manik Arora, CFO TAG Group. Manik is third-generation entrepreneur in real estate and an economics postgraduate from Imperial College London. With over a decade of experience in strategic leadership and people management, Manik has been leading the diversification of TAG Corp into commercial real estate development. Welcome, Manik, and request you to please share your opening thoughts on the topic of discussion.
So at the outset, I'd like to thank NASSCOM and Indeed for creating this survey report, which offers a structured approach to return to workplace decision that every organization in India is facing today as we return towards some level of normalcy of pre-COVID times. So at TAG Corp, we have been in the real estate business for the last 7 decades. Our organization has experienced multiple disruptive periods in the commercial real estate sector, from 9/11, the 2008 financial crisis, Enron, and whatnot. But it's safe to say that COVID-19 has been the most transformative in how corporates view their office portfolio. So in retrospect, COVID-19 has redirected the focus of all our stakeholders, corporates, HR, admin, people leaders, directly onto the employees. Physical workspaces today must offer amenities that cannot be recreated by any digital tool. Since the onset of the pandemic, our team has been able to assimilate a dynamic insight into the variables driving the workplace decisions for office users. September 2021 witnessed the return to the workplace for a lot of these corporates that declared work from home in the first place. However, we find that these corporates, the purpose of the workplace is changing for these corporates. It's no longer enough for the corporate to question whether or not to return to the workplace. I feel now the question is, what kind of workplace do we return to?
Well said, Manik, you're so right. What kind of workplace do we return to, and what does the physical office space has to offer to us, which the remote working place cannot offer to our staff? Very well said. With that, our next panelist today is Shruti Tandon, Director of People Enablement, NAGARRO. Shruti is responsible for leading interventions in the area of career, culture, capability, and change. She has more than 15 years of experience in HR business partnering, culture building, performance and talent management, organizational development, change management, and international HR. She loves the culture of NAGARRO, humanistic, people-first way of thinking and nurturing, and strong emphasis on ethics. Outside of work, her focus lies with family, fitness, and some reading. Welcome, Shruti. Any opening thoughts that you would like to share on the future of work and evolving hybrid models?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Kriti. It's wonderful to be here today and, talk about something that continues to baffle the best minds across the world, which is the future of work here. So it's a no-brainer that COVID has, upended everything, our personal lives, our professional lives. In fact, the very world at large. I would say. But if you were to ask me what COVID has altered most phenomenally, I would say that the place and the culture of work. You know, the very definition of a workplace stands modified in this COVID era. Work from anywhere seems to be the new modus operandi and across the industry. And as a growing body of research, you know, it tells us how employees continue to seek flexibility, you know, in terms of location they want to work from. And that is precisely, you know, why companies find themselves adapting to these altered employee demands, because after all, change is the only constant, as they say. So while a few firms, you know, are hoping to reopen offices, there are others who are bracing longer stints of work from anywhere. And then there are some who are adopting to these hybrid work models by equipping employees with whatever it takes to sustain and, you know, enhance productivity. And why is all of this? It's because of these overwhelming segments of workers who are desiring flexibility to sustain and enhance, you know, productivity as well. So I recently also came across this Future Forum Pulse survey, which said 75% of people who had submitted the survey said they wanted freedom to operate remotely. And then 93% also said they wanted freedom to work on their own schedules. So I think hybrid future is a prospect that might interest many, you know, because the work from home might not always be the ideal scenario, and it puts employees also at the risk of, you know, burnout because of these fading boundaries between work and home, and an increased work-life stress that COVID has to bring to us. So I think the need is in defining the work policy, you know, hybrid work policy or a work policy that allows flexible work in the long term. And I would say at NAGARRO, we recognize this power of remote working quite a while ago. In fact, one of our you know, business units was operating completely remotely already. And a year before pandemic hit us, we took a decision to institute you know, a distributed working certificate program throughout NAGARRO. So when COVID stuck us, we were seamlessly moved to work from anywhere model, which we continue to now, you know, tweak to suit our employees' need. But I would say in conclusion that the future of work would lie in finding hybrid models that will allow us to shift work to fit around life rather than alter life to fit around work.
Yeah. So very well said, Shruti. I'm completely with you. And, you know, it's a similar story with my organization also. We perhaps had the early mover advantage, considering that we are in the communication industry and predominantly women. We were already working in this hybrid setup. So for us, pandemic was not as difficult as many other faced, but it's a wake-up call. And I really love the way you ended it by saying our work models have to have life encompassed in it, and life should be integral to it, not trying to fit life in work. So with that, next we have on with us is Sashi, Head of Sales, Indeed India. Sashi is responsible for driving sales, both enterprise and corporate, new business development nationally by syncing with companies' mission and business objective internationally. Sashi brings with him more than 16 years of experience and has played a key role in shaping up leading job boards in the country. He's a hotel management graduate from IHM Chennai and an MBA in marketing from Pondicherry. Welcome, Sashi. Would love to hear your opening thoughts on the topic of discussion.
Thank you so much, Kriti. I think what we've seen over the last 1.5 years is, in my mind, possibly the largest social experiment the world has ever gone through, right? So much change being forced over so short a time. I don't think it has ever happened in the past in our living memories, or even our parents or grandparents' living memories. And I think some of the positives that came out of this whole mess was the adaptability we saw. We saw people adapting to different kinds of lifestyle. We saw companies adapting to different ways of work. We saw children, parents, everybody adapting to new situations, being able to sort of get on with things, even in the face of adversity. To me, some of the trends that I see that started with the pandemic and which is likely to continue strongly. One is the increased digitization of the economy. I think we've seen an acceleration of digitization, and in a lot of ways, considering we are here in a NASSCOM forum, I think in a lot of ways, this digitization has benefited many, many tech companies in India, because in a lot of ways, the work that has happened around digitization in most parts of the world has a strong India pivot to it. From an employee perspective, I think more than ever, as people, we are now focused on mental health. This was something that people never spoke about in India. But today, it's front and center as companies look to open offices. Companies focus on the mental well-being of their employees, because ultimately, if their employees are not in a good space in their minds, it is going to impact the kind of work that they're going to sort of bring about. And I think also there's been a change in how we spoke or defined work-life balance. I think today we talk about the work-life continuum, where in a way, work and life weave into one whole tapestry rather than standing out as two separate threads. And my final thoughts, as companies look at reopening offices, one thing that we need to keep in mind is that a lot of companies have invested in diversifying their workforce over the last few years. As they time their office reopening, considering that children haven't been vaccinated, schools and childcare centers haven't opened, to consider the impact of asking all their employees to come back to work. How will that impact diversity in workforce, which has been achieved by many companies with a lot of hard work? Those are my opening thoughts, Kriti. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Shashi. What diverse perspective. And I really love the 2 points that you said. Work-life balance has gone out of the window. We are talking more about work-life continuum, work-life harmony. We are talking more about mental health, which was always, put under the carpet, at least in India. And the sweet spot for India is this increased digitization, which opens a huge opportunity field for India and all our engineers here, and specifically for people in the NASSCOM community. With that, I would like to call on now our fourth and final panelist for today's discussion. That is Aniket Sudhanshu, Senior Analyst, NASSCOM Insights. Aniket is an industry analyst at NASSCOM and closely analyzes how technology is transforming the business landscape and future of work in the country. He has over a decade of experience in technology research and strategy consulting. Prior to NASSCOM, he was the founding director of GMI Research, which is ranked as one of the top 20 emerging market research companies in India. Welcome, Aniket. Before we get into the detailed discussion, what are your top thoughts on hybrid operating model in the post-COVID world?
Thank you, Kriti. I think when we talk about hybrid operating model, it's already here and it's only likely to grow from here, be it beyond the pandemic or be it along the pandemic. The greater flexibility to employees is now becoming crucial for organizations, not just to attract new talent, but also to retain the existing ones. In fact, in the NASSCOM Return to Workplace survey that we have recently done, 66% of employees have reported higher employer satisfaction while working in a remote or a hybrid setup. On the employer end, the model is very instrumental to create a fine balance between business continuity as well as managing employee health and safety risk. Hybrid will also be able to bring in unparalleled level of agility and flexibility in the operating model, as it brings the best of both remote and hybrid work models. As we move forward, I believe this model will essentially mean that employee contribution will increasingly be assessed by the tangible output, and organizations will more likely to sustain the high level of productivity that we have experienced during the pandemic.
Well said. Absolutely on the same page with you, Aniket. It is about greater flexibility, productivity, well-being of our employees, and growth for the organization. That's really the sweet spot, and perhaps we needed a pandemic to open our eyes that this is a possibility. Well, with that, diving straight into the conversation, Manik, my first question is for you. Most of us believe that by early 2022, we'll see people coming back into offices in a hybrid setup. How do you foresee the interest in returning to workplace? Any trends that you notice?
So, Kriti, if we just look at the numbers, I was reading a recent report by JLL that stated that the office absorption in Q3 of 2021 was at 6 million square feet, 50% higher than the previous quarter, and 8% higher than Q3 of 2020. So this includes both pre-commitments and fresh leasing. And clearly these numbers indicate that for a lot of corporates, COVID did not cancel their expansion or relocation plans. It just postponed them. there's a clear desire amongst corporates to retain some of their office spaces. The most major trend that we're witnessing now is, like I said earlier, corporates have started questioning what kind of workplace should they be returning to when they eventually return. How do these workplaces benefit their employees? There's a clear requirement amongst corporates to enhance the wellness quotient of their employees, and also to give these employees a reason to come to work that goes beyond their desks, that goes beyond their system. We find that corporates are realizing that working from home many times does lead to fatigue and burnout, as Shruti just mentioned. It's because although employees are saving time on traffic, they have various other responsibilities and daily chores that they have to do at home in between work. We must understand something, that productivity data is largely based on per day. And if the same were to be calculated in terms of per hour, we'd be able to understand that work from home is relatively less productive. It's a very interesting thing that a lot of us should reassess when we're evaluating productivity levels. Employers on their part are preferring some part of the work week to be spent in the office because physical collaboration cannot effectively be recreated on a computer. Any task undertaken via remote working that requires a change in strategy, change in goals, or even involves a cross-function, it simply becomes too complex or just takes more time to get done if you're doing it remotely. The hub and spoke model is hence evolving in a very unexpected way. We're noticing that a lot of companies are now consolidating into new age office buildings, consolidating their entire office portfolio. And that becomes the hub. Whereas work from home has now become the spoke. And largely corporates are adopting some combination of this hub and spoke. But what is safe to say is that we're witnessing offices of the future are going to look a lot like an enhanced version of the older offices.
I like that thought, enhanced version of the older offices. And, on the hub and spoke model, just thinking aloud, and I was talking to Shruti earlier, that during the pandemic itself, the organization that I work for, WPP, we consolidated all our work, all our offices across Delhi, and we are now in a central building, much better, more collaborative, more open, more agile. And you're right, these trends are reality. These are not just written in some reports. These are happening in our work life. And I love that that I'm going to get down to that, Manik, and perhaps pick up the phone on you on that per day and per hour analysis, because yes, you're right. Working long does not necessarily mean working more or working productively. Sometimes the fatigue sets in so deeply that you actually, at the end of your work day say, what have I done? What have I achieved in that entire day? And of course, meeting face to face and that collaboration can never be the same on a computer vis-a-vis meeting in person.
Truly.
So thank you so much for those pearls of wisdom. Coming to you, Shruti, what is your view of the future operating model? And is there any difference on return to work sentiment by age or seniority that you are seeing?
As I said earlier, any pragmatic future work model would be one that allows employees to fit their work around their lives rather than the other way around. So I think hybrid work models would be the way forward, in my opinion. And a remote setup would be one that is quite different from the previous concept of, say, a location or, company headquarters. So I think the idea going forward would be the ability to democratize the careers of our people, But I think the right strategy, as with any good strategy, would be to work towards creating the right balance. Remote working would not necessarily mean, the death of office, certainly, but hybrid models in which people have greater autonomy to choose when to come to office, when they want to work remote, and then coupled with a percentage of workforce working complete remotely, are going to become more and more ubiquitous, I would say. We are already witnessing how the roles of office is undergoing a rapid shift. Today, the office is not just an enabler of great work. It's primarily, a social platform that serves as a, release of that druggery from working from home. And we are witnessing metamorphosis of these offices into breakout zones where team would catch up over, say, tea and coffee. You would ideate over foosball, but work can happen from home as well. So while productivity was the office mantra, I would say, of yesterday, today it is collaboration, it's celebration, and it's these connections that you develop. So I think one way to think about the future workplace is in the industry is that they'll be more like these co-working spaces that'll be adaptable to every person or a group in a manner they like, whenever they like. And in general, one size fit all approach, I think, would fade away. So the future workplace will be more flexible and something which gives that ability to adapt to specific need of your people. Now, interestingly, a couple of months ago, we ran a work from anywhere themed survey within NAGARRO. And to our amusement, we discovered 7,000 people spread across 300 cities. And I think in the past couple of years, we already, like I said, we already started a push towards distributed working. We were expanding from 2 to 6 cities, but never even in our wildest dreams we imagined this pace of change. This type of a rapid and widespread fragmentation of our workspace workforce was a very strong reinforcement to this immense potential of remote work model. But as with all the things, one need to be very cautious to put things into perspective and then try and strike the right balance. So I think for roles which would require more proximity to machinery or to the point of transaction, there should certainly be increased digitization, as Manik and Sashi also rightly mentioned, but not a complete shift to remote, I would say. But on the other hand, even when remote is possible, there still is no good substitute for these relationships which are built, these innovations that occur during these coincidental interactions in your physical setting. So the need to get together to celebrate success, or to just escape from home to focus better, or just get together with colleagues and brainstorm, they're not gonna all disappear. So we will have challenges on logistics, ensuring loss of productivity and the security due to infrastructure issues. But I think people are also trying ways to avoid having work consume one's own personal life, and then vice versa. So I think ensuring one's personal circumstances of or lack of infrastructure does not impact work. But for most of us, office was not just a workplace, but it was a place where we had a maximum social interactions, I would say, and to lose that facet of life, which is then impacting mental well-being of our people. So I think there are multiple challenges around getting this fine amalgam in a hybrid work model. But I think with such challenges at hand, organizations with the knowledge base are going to find it extremely difficult to attract and retain talent if they're not flexible about giving remote working option to their people. And especially, I think in the Indian context, there are a lot of benefits associated with this. People are closer to their home now. It improves the quality of their life, being with family, and it offers them a huge flexibility. And then on the other hand, for organizations, you get this diverse access to talent across. So one can, and then of course one can also better manage cost when it comes to these large ticket expense like real estate. But I said a good strategy would be, I think, one of caution. And in my view, going forward, more and more home would be from where we would work, and office would be where would be social. So I think there is complete inversion would need us to reimagine what an office should be and how it should look like, and how it should be designed to increase collaboration, engagement, connection. Yeah,
absolutely. And you said it right. It is no one fit all kind of an approach. It is basis your needs, your talent pool. But the interesting thing that I'm taking away from this conversation, Shruti, especially from yours, is the democratization of workplace and the choice. The choice is again back with the employee. So the employers have to be agile to understand the kind of demographics and the kind of talent pool that they want, and how are they making their approach and their work models flexible enough to attract and retain them. And I think that's, and also while continuing to have them productively deployed. So very interesting times, I must say. There's a lot of work going around it. But yes, collaboration, connection, and celebration. Indeed, we do need workplaces to continue to do that. Computer is not the best way to do it. Rest, a lot of things can be done digitally. With that, and coming to you, Shashi, let's talk about employee expectations. I would love to hear your thoughts on how is the future operating model leading to change in employee expectations, especially in terms of preferences in career job opportunities. And again, the same question, are you seeing that there is any demographic dispersion in these expectation or change of expectations?
So, Kriti, one thing we must keep in mind is that all companies are not in the same place. And there are industries where you will need people to come into office every day, all employees to come into office every day. For example, the health sector. I mean, you cannot have doctors and nurses sitting at home and working. They need to be at the hospital. So there will be, even within companies, let's say a tech company, there'll be some roles where we will need people to be in the office every day. For example, your network people who need to manage the network, ensure that it's up and everybody's able to use all office resources online properly. There'll be some roles where people can work, flex, and there'll be roles where companies can say, okay, for this role, I'm happy for you to work from home, completely remotely. And the ability of companies to attract talent will depend on to what extent they are able to offer this flexibility to their employees. And the availability of talent is also impacted for that. For example, let's take a company that has roles which can function completely remotely. Think of how easy it will be for them to hire if they are able to open it up to locations beyond where they are present in. What does that do to my salary costs? What does it do to my other costs? Because I am able to get talent which is available in a city which is not as expensive to live in. Therefore, people do not have the kind of salary expectations they would have when they're sitting in, say, a Delhi or a Bombay or a Bangalore. That is one. Second, I think how companies view their relationship with employees also evolves. More than ever today, companies realize that, like I said earlier, mental health is important. Mental health of the employees are important. And in a lot of ways, companies will try and fit in their strategies that optimizes the good space, the headspace for their employees. So the mantra is that if companies offer flexibility to their employees, they're likely to attract and retain the best possible talent. Not all industries are going to be able to do that. Not all roles are going to happen in such a fashion. So whoever is able to do it in that industry, to be able to attract the best talent, you need to offer flexibility.
I agree with you, Manik, but yes, you made a very important point that all companies are not at the same place. All of them cannot offer the same kind of flexibility. And even within the organization, roles are different. Some roles have to be at office every day, while others can have that flexibility. So it's a very sweet spot. And yes, of course, business advantages, both from a talent pool availability as well as cost benefit, because we are able to offer a hybrid model of working or flexi model of working, as we may call it, are immense. And with that, we are seeing that 70% of the organizations are looking at hybrid working. Transformation of workplace processes, approaches, mindset to adapt to this new way of working is the ask of every organization. So let's talk about workplace undergoing transformation to adopt to this new hybrid model. Manik, can you share your perspective from how TAG Group is embracing the hybrid model and how our workplace is being transformed at TAG?
So, Kriti, over the last 18 months, a certain set of questions continue to guide how we are transforming our existing office spaces and also designing our new campuses that are under construction across NCR. So these questions are things like, is my office flexible? Is it modern? Does it have access to open air? Is it helping my employees breathe fresher air? Is it offering collaboration or convenience options not possible by any digital tool? Is it supporting my corporate brand? Is it boosting employee well-being, collaboration, and talent attraction? Is it leveraging technology to deliver advantages in building maintenance and cost savings? Does my office offer reliable IT connectivity and power backup, which is now even more critical if I'm going partially remote? For example, in our office project we're developing in Sector 19, Gurgaon, we added additional lift shafts during the pandemic in an under construction tower so that we could offer an exclusive entrance lobby to an anchor tenant at the ground level, separate from the main lift lobby of the building. So we're prioritizing the air quality of our campuses and making very practical design changes to it. For example, smart traffic circulation and segregated entry and exit points of vehicles is something we've worked a lot on. Traffic movement in a campus should be in a way that it does not create a lot of pollution within the campus. We also aim to make a lot of these amenities in our project accessible and measurable. So while we've added air filters to our campuses, we are making sure that these air filters are capable of targeting pathogens that carry the coronavirus. We are making sure that our building is equipped with air quality monitors so that you can compare the indoor and outdoor AQI and an employee can feel more confident working in their offices. Today, more than ever before, design and technology can go a very long way in repurposing office spaces, I feel. And it's generally assumed that a lot of these value additions are expensive and they can only be offered in office buildings where the per square foot rent is in 3 digits. But I personally feel that as corporates return to their workplaces with the rise in vaccinations, leaders like you must question, I repeatedly say this, what kind of workplace you are returning to. We at TAG, we're fortunate to have a brilliant team of consultants that have brainstormed over architecture, services design, traffic design, vertical transportation. What is the experience of an employee from entering the campus through his shuttle or vehicle to reaching his desk? How touchless is it? How safe is it? How quick is it? These are the questions that we want to offer with practical solutions to our end users at more accessible price points. That is how we see the hybrid model transforming workspace solutions in the future.
Manik, you've left everyone with a very important question, that what kind of workplace are you returning to? And on one part where we are talking that costs are going to come down because the overall real estate requirement would be lower considering the hybrid work environment. But is the organization willing to put part of it in designing and redesigning the workplace of the future, which is safe, open, collaborative, digitally transformed, while giving all the flexibility that the employees need? I think you've left us with a lot of things to think about as individuals, as employees, and as leaders. And with that, Shruti, I would like to ask you, please share with us, how is NAGARRO adopting to the hybrid operating model, specifically from a physical workspace?
Well, at some levels, I would say we were lucky. NAGARRO was and is already a globally distributed organization, and we've been working remotely for the longest time now, I would say. For us, this format wasn't new, but the obligation to adhere to it was. In fact, we switched to remote working without missing a beat, as I said earlier as well. But again, I need to emphasize here that even as a distributed company, we valued face-to-face interaction with people, which we missed during the lockdown as offices closed and the travels were halted. So I think to cope up with this loss, we also created a lot of these online assets for informal exchange and interaction on a variety of topics. And we stressed our caring values to keep us together as an organization. These digital assets helped us navigate seamlessly and kept us together, especially in terms of exchange of ideas and knowledge through this period. But what allowed NAGARRO to succeed in hybrid working is this unique humanistic culture our core values that we spell as caring, CARING. And we believe that's the superpower that we have. And caring for this stands for, client-centric, agile, responsible, intelligent, non-hierarchical, and global. And these shared values aligned us as an organization and, acted as a fuel to our momentum in this period. And, our company's mission statement also already recognizes the need to celebrate talent, and it reads, making distance irrelevant between intelligent people. So I think remote working, in the sense that employees frequently communicated with each other across the continents, without the need to meet in person, had always been the culture at NAGARRO. But what pandemic allowed us was to be able to hire, more people, not being restricted by the geography. We, in this period, we opened, and we're continuing to open more smaller offices. We opened it up in Dehradun, Indore, Pune, Bangalore, and then there are plans to open it up in Chandigarh and other cities. So for instance, this is something we couldn't have necessarily executed efficiently pre-pandemic, I would say. And in order to go against that reflexive idea that we are working without having to be sitting next to us, in this entire duration, we experimented a lot of things. Some of us would come to office, we began assigning floors and buildings randomly. Teams were split across building. So now, as more people are permitted to be in the office, according to these relaxed pandemic guidelines, NAGARRO is putting a limit to the number of days people can be in the office. We currently restricted it to twice a week. And our managers are forbidden from calling colleagues to office for meetings. So it's totally by choice that you would want to land up in the office. So you see, we try and provide our colleagues with as much of choice as possible, in terms of working from home or working from anywhere location. So even when we decided to reopen the offices, there was a great divide that we saw between, how work from home was seen by most of the people and how managers saw it. In this short survey that we conducted across our India offices, out of these 5,500 respondents, 95% said they wanted to be in the office 3 days or even fewer than that. And managers had a totally different story. They had concerns over how the workload has increased, how days were spent, mostly in video conferencing, then those challenges they are facing on how to train people on culture. How do you get creative ideas if you're not in the same place? Can we get people to stick with the company if it's this virtual bond? But nothing was insurmountable, I would say. NAGARRO gradually managed to flip the purpose of the office space. Henceforth, these workspaces for us will be now, spaces where colleagues get together to connect, to skill up and relax, over a few beer whenever possible. But while we sorely missed, our these real world interactions, a majority of colleagues also indicated that they would not like to go back working in the office every day. So we are keeping all options open. Meanwhile, we are also creating a lot of digital forums and activities to hold on to the company spirit, and culture, even in these increasing virtual world, I would say.
So I think a very, very sensible approach. Keep your ears close to the ground. Listen to what the people are asking. Create your processes and mindset and offices and the way you're going to work and the models that you're going to work around it. Create what works for the people and helps them do their best. And I think that's what I'm hearing from you, Shruti, and which is, I would agree as a leader in my own organization as the best approach. What your people want, what the organization wants, and a semblance of that coming together is always the perfect model for anyone. And I think we've got a lot of advice and insights because you had the first mover advantage at NAGARRO. And thank you. And I'm sure it's going to come in very handy to each one of us, whether it's surveys, whether it's online assets. But I completely agree with you. The office space has flipped. What we did at work and what we did at home has now completely flipped. We work at home and we come to the office to connect, collaborate, creative ideation, and also have a lot of fun along the way. So the need to redefine, realign the people acquisition strategy is imminent need today. And I'm sure we all agree with that. Shashi, in your view, how are organizations realigning their talent strategy and making changes in talent sourcing models? Would love to hear you.
Yeah, so there are some interesting trends that are coming about. The first I will talk about is the people strategy. Today, when companies look closely at roles for which they don't need people to come into office, they are looking at where can I find talent, the best talent, and hire them irrespective of the geographical locations. So this means that companies are in a position to cast their net wider. The second thing that where there's a huge change already, and I believe that will not change even in the post-COVID era, is how we conduct interviews. Think about it earlier. An interview would mean coming into your prospective company's office maybe 3 or 4 times. Most good companies do 4 rounds of interview, and taking those, coming for 4 rounds of interviews would mean taking 4 days off from your work, where you're employed, telling lies, walking into offices, not being completely truthful, spending time doing interviews. I think that's going to change. Today, most of the interview process is going to be online. You'll have companies who are able to source, screen, assess, and interview online. That's one thing which is going to evolve definitely and completely. The second thing is around how companies build their brands and tell that story from an employer brand perspective. A large part of how people got convinced to work for other companies was when they walked into the lobby of the company, saw how big it was, saw how people interacted, how many people are laughing, how many people are smiling, or is everybody scared and everybody's got a really strict look on their face. So all of that played a role in people's perception of companies that they had to work with. That's not going to be there. So companies need to build a very strong, viable brand online. A lot of conversations that candidates would overhear sitting in the lobby waiting for the interviews will be now what people read on review sites like Glassdoor, even Indeed's own CMPP page, company pages, etc. That's where your brand is going to, your brand story is going to either get built or destroyed. So the third thing which I wanted to talk about, like I said, it's going to, you're going to have a larger spread of talent availability. So in my mind, from a talent acquisition strategy, 3 changes. 1, interview process, mostly completely online. 2, for employer branding, primarily built online with a very, very strong influence of reviews and responses of companies to reviews. And 3rd, availability of talent, which is now going to be spread out rather than restricted to a city.
Very profound insights. I think this is all staring in the face. While it's good for the organization that the talent pool has opened up, and it's good for the prospective employees that the interview cycles does not mean anymore taking day off or cooking stories, but it's going to make it far more efficient. The interview cycles and recruitment cycles will also shorten, is the way I see it. And employer branding, you're right. Your branding has to be online. Your people are going to be your advocates. So the more you create happy advocates, the better will be your brands. And that is going to be the unique positioning. Shashi, you have hit the nail on the head, and it's very, very insightful. Thank you so much for sharing that in a very succinct manner. Coming to you, Aniket, how do you foresee the hybrid model evolving in India? Please share the key insights from the recent NASSCOM Return to Workplace survey.
Sure, Kriti. So we just released the NASSCOM Indeed Return to Workplace survey report. I think just been a week or so. And broadly, we are looking at 50% of tech industry's workforce returning to office for up to 3 days a week by around January 22. You were just asking about the demographic split, and one of the interesting things that were highlighted from the research is that workforce up to the age of 25 and above the age of 40, basically the junior and the senior management, wants a sooner return to workplace as compared to middle management. Employees expect the organizations to have a 1 to 3 months roadmap in terms of bringing the workforce back to premises. And nearly 72% of the organizations are looking at up to 50% of the workforce returning to workplace by January 22. In terms of looking at the hybrid work model, as you have already covered, that it's going to be the norm now, with 70% of the organizations looking at either strengthening the model or adopting them. And there's also a strong correlation between the size of the workforce of an organization and their plans in terms of adoption of hybrid work model. The organizations that have a size workforce of more than 1,000 are more likely to adopt the hybrid model at 83% compared to the industry average of 70%.
Very interesting, very, very interesting. And, I read the report and it's a fabulous report. It's a report that I urge each leader and all organizations to get a copy and do read it, because there are some very interesting insights coming out of it, which can be used into putting into effect your operating model for the future. With that, thank you, Manik, Shruti, Sashi, and Aniket, for sharing your insights and perspectives with us today. I have several takeaways, and I'm sure our listeners will have many too. Before we end the discussion, would love to hear any closing thoughts that any one of you may have. Let's start with ladies first. Shruti, any closing thoughts that you have?
Absolutely. Well, Kriti, I would say COVID has changed everything around us. It has accelerated our journey into this, inevitable future agnostic of distance and time. The boundaries between work and life are getting blurred, and the traditional working hours are no longer normal. Work calls getting extended late into evenings, disrupting personal lives. I think it is an area where we need to navigate while remembering at all the times that people are at the heart of all of these endeavors, and their mental health and their physical well-being carries the utmost priority. As an organization, we'll have to make sure that our employees remain, well protected from the additional strain placed on them by the current environment, and then, parallelly, digitally enabling personalized employee experience. That will remain crucial aspect of, I think, collaborative approach towards workplace interactions in the future.
Thank you, Shruti. Manik, any closing thoughts from your side?
Yes, definitely. I think that after listening to all your thoughts, one thing that is reinforced in my mindset now is that this widespread adoption of hybrid working is, if you think about it, just 18 months old. And the situation is very dynamic. And all of us don't actually know what are the long-term implications of adopting widespread hybrid working at this stage. Although we can all note that there's a certain saving, a real estate saving, when we do move to a certain level of hybrid working. A lot of corporates that I spoke to earlier this year who were keen on hybrid working and remote working are now telling us that we are actually wanting to go back to a return to workplace model, because a lot of people that we hired during COVID, we're seeing a lot of attrition in that hiring, because these people have not connected to our organizational culture the way people have pre-COVID. So I think what is safe to say is that while there are a lot of questions that are yet to be answered in this scenario, the democratic nature of workspaces is here to stay. A positive impact of COVID-19 would be, I would say, that developers, funds, people leaders, HR, admin come together to put the focus back on employees, prioritize their wellness, their mental health, as Shruti has said. And I think that'll be a true win-win situation where the people actually using the office spaces get the most benefit out of it. I think that is the ultimate benefit of the other side of the pandemic.
Very well said, Manik and Shruti. Employees will remain at the heart of every solution and every model that we create, with, of course, the underlying need of the business and what industry that the business operates in. So with that, Sashi, any closing thoughts from your side?
3 very quick closing thoughts. First, at the risk of making a prediction into the future, like Manik said, it keeps changing. But with whatever I know, I sort of subscribe to what the report says. The future of work is hybrid, and we will see people coming into office, working from home, getting between both of these as much as possible in the future. 2, employees front and center of every single decision that companies make, and mental health well-being of employees being pretty important for companies. And the third thing, which a lot of people aren't talking about from a work perspective, is the impact of companies on the environment, and companies taking that into account. What is my carbon footprint? if I am sending out 5,000 cabs a day in a city like Bangalore to pick up and drop employees, what can I do to ensure that I'm minimizing my carbon footprint? How do I work out of office? Or how do I create an office where I am being least, doing the least damage to the environment? So these are aspects that will definitely come up in the future, specifically after the kind of commitments that our Prime Minister has made on our behalf in the climate summit. So we should be, that's another aspect companies and employees will definitely have to take into consideration as we go into the future.
Thank you, Manik, for recentering us back to the focus on climate and environment. Very important. We cannot take what we have for granted as it's going to remain. As you know, in the last 2 decades itself, we've seen the quality of air deteriorating, and we have to be mindful as corporate citizens, as individuals, more mindful and supportive to ensure that our carbon footprint is the least. With that, Aniket, any closing thoughts from your side?
I think one thing that I like to highlight, apart from all the discussion that we have already had, is the agility and fungibility in the future operating model. That is the core of the, how competitive advantage the companies can actually bring in by having the ability to seamlessly transition between a remote model or an on-site model, depending on the circumstances. And the organizations who are able to seamlessly do that will have the best advantage in terms of retaining talent, attracting talent, as well as maintaining the business continuity as we go forward.
That's right. And after hearing all your thoughts and my conclusion, all I can say is both employees and employers have unique considerations envisioning their return to workplace. However, despite a mostly differing set of considerations, employees and employers are equally interested in a hybrid workplace model, making it amply clear that the future of work is about flexibility, productivity, scalability. The ability to seamlessly transition to an on-site model or an all-remote model based on situational advantage will provide a key long-term competitive edge to early adopters. The hybrid work model is ideal, scalable, and fungible without doubt. I completely agree with you on that front, Aniket. Having said that, there is no one approach that fits all. Organizations will need to assess their requirements and identify the right operating model suitable for them that gives them the growth and flexibility while giving employees the space to collaborate, celebrate, and co-create while empowering them with more bandwidth and their personal responsibilities. Responsible leaders should and must shape the future of work by building hybrid-ready operating models tailored to their organizational needs. It sounds complex, but I believe it will be worthwhile as business growth in an uncertain world depends on a resilient and productive work model. So start building yours today. Closely reassess your strengths and preparedness across parameters and make it possible with technology so that organization grows and thrives at all times. A hybrid future of work indeed is bright, resilient, and more optimistic future of work. Once again, thank you to our panelists for their time and insights today. With this, we conclude today's session. Stay tuned for the next edition of Future of Work series by NASSCOM Insights. Thank you from me, your host, and all of us from NASSCOM Insights team. Have a great evening.